Hello, my name's Leah Crawford, one of the Opening Doors authors, and today I'm going to take you on a journey through a text that will help us to craft our own comedy. So by the end of this session you will have written your own very effective comic text. Right, the first thing I'd like us to do is to look at this story opening. It should look quite familiar. Once upon a time there was what? Have a go at 2 or 3 ways of ending that sentence. Pause the video for now. Okay, what did we have? Once upon a time there was a princess. Once upon a time there was a young girl who lived with her mother. Once upon a time there was an old man and an old woman who lived deep in the forest. Yes, perhaps those kinds of endings? Right, let's see where this text takes us. Once upon a time there was a king, you say. You might have said that, but you are wrong. Once upon a time there was a piece of wood. This wood was not valuable. It was a common log, just like those that are used for firewood in the winter. Goodness me. Let's pause and explore what is going on here in this crazy passage. So first of all, I'd like you to think together about how that once upon a time there was a king, you say, but you are wrong, is a bit like being in the audience at a pantomime. And I'd also like you to think about that surprise. None of us would have guessed once upon a time there was a piece of wood. So can you think of your favourite TV comedy, your favourite film, and moments in it where it's that moment of utter surprise, the unexpected, that makes you laugh. So pause the video for a moment and have a chat about those 2 things. Okay, so part of what is unusual and lifts this voice off the page is that call and response. This writer that is on the page is bringing in the voice of the reader. A king, you say, but you're wrong. That you, that second person pronoun, there's something we can use in our own writing. Then that element of the unexpected, it's like the rug being pulled from under your feet as a reader. So you can see how live and oral and active this text has become just in this tiny little snippet. Okay, shall we continue deeper into the text? So this piece of wood is in the carpenter's workshop of Master Cherry. And as a carpenter, in the front of a piece of wood, he looks upon it with delight and starts to think about what he could make with it. This has come just at the right time. It will make the perfect leg for a little table. Having said this, he picked up an axe to remove the bark and the rough surface with. But just as he was about to start, he heard a very small voice say, "Don't hit me!" Master Cherry was astonished. He looked around the room, terrified to see whether he could see where the voice had come from, but there was nobody there. He looked under the bench. Nobody. He looked into a cupboard that was always shut. Nobody. He looked into a basket of wood shavings and sawdust. Nobody. He even opened the door of the shop and glanced into the street. And still nobody. But who could it be? "Oh, I see how it is," he said, laughing and scratching his wig. "Evidently that little voice was all my imagination. Let's set to work again." And taking up the axe, he struck a tremendous blow on the piece of wood. "Oh, oh, you've hurt me!" cried the same little voice dolefully. Well, I really think I had such fun reading that aloud. You should be able to do the same. So if you're on your own, you might just read that, bring that to life with a dramatic reading. If there's more than one of you, how about acting it out? So one of you can be Master Cherry, one of you can be the piece of wood, one of you could do the narrator's voice, and one of you, another, if you've got 4 of you, the director who can step back back and see if you're really bringing this comedy to life off the page. So, what might you think about here? Master Cherry goes through extreme emotion, so we need to see this emotional journey. This is partly where the pantomime comedy comes from. He goes from delight to astonishment. That literally means being turned to stone. Can you see the root word in the middle there? You can spot the stone. Then becomes terror as it starts to dawn on him that something that is not alive is talking to him. And then, he has that laughter as he tries to reassure himself that everything is okay. That's where the comedy comes from, okay? Now, bringing it to life, you have got the option of bringing those movements to life. So those exaggerated, rhythmic, repetitive movements of him lifting the axe and of him looking in all those places for the voice. Yeah, see if you can bring that to life. And you can play with the contrast of the voices. So how is Master Cherry going to talk? And how about the little piece of wood? Yes, I tried to bring a contrast to that, but you can play with different ideas, different voices there. So again, pause the video, have a play with bringing these words off the page, bringing them to life. Now, I don't know whether you had already guessed this, but this is the opening to Carlo Collodi's masterpiece, originally written in the Italian, Pinocchio. Now, Pinocchio is an extremely naughty little wooden puppet who is brought to life by Master Geppetto. Here's a toy maker. He comes and he buys this wood from Master Cherry, and the puppet comes to life. He is an extremely naughty puppet. He doesn't want to listen to Geppetto. He runs away. He goes through all sorts of scrapes and adventures, largely because he has very bad judgment, very bad morals. He's very selfish and greedy. But he does come back home safer and wiser in the end. Okay, so it's a wonderful piece of writing. And he's writing in a long tradition of Italian slapstick comedy called the Commedia dell'arte, that we still see alive in, if you've ever gone to pantomime in the theatre at Christmas time, if you've ever seen circus clowns and their sort of stupidity and their beautiful rhythm in their shows, or a Punch and Judy show. So Pinocchio is, look there, written 1883, but still very much alive in our own comedy and our own writing. Now, writing like Collodi. Okay, here's some options. You have acted this out and kind of really got yourself into the style and the rhythm of his comedy. You could just continue the rest of the scene. Yes, this exchange between the wood coming to life and Master Cherry's surprise. You could take this this happens in chapter 3, I think, where Geppetto has bought the piece of wood, takes it back home to his toy maker's workshop. The moment where he finishes carving his puppet and the puppet comes to life. And that first moment is a little wink of the eye. Pinocchio's eye begins to wink at him. So you could take that and develop that idea. Okay, so that's directly linked to the piece that we've read together. If you want wings to fly, we say in our books, how about you make your own object and you make it come to life, and you could act this out, and then again you could take it into writing, into story. Now there's the gingerbread man from a very similar tradition. So you could make your own gingerbread man or woman or whoever you want it to be, bring them to life and write about their adventures. This relates, doesn't it, to the latest Pixar Toy Story 4, though you've seen it too. The little girl makes herself a spoonie, a toy out of a plastic spoon when she's rather unhappy going to her first few days at school, and then becomes very attached to this little spoonie. And Spoonie goes on crazy adventures and gets lost several times. So you could make a junk model. And think, yes, about the kind of crazy adventures they go on, and will it be a famous out and back story like Pinocchio? Like, this is the same as Odysseus, one of the Greek myths. Odysseus goes out, has to go through all sorts of adventures and things before he's allowed back home to Ithaca, to his wife and his son. big ideas there for you to explore. But how will we know whether we have done this well, whether we have created comedy? So let's go back to what Collodi taught us. Yeah, there are very specific things we've learnt here about creating comedy. You can, like in a pantomime, an actor talks to the audience, you can talk to your reader. Yeah, so we had, once upon a time we had, "A king, you say? No, you are wrong." Yes, they were talking to us like a dialogue. So you could, "What do you think she did next?" "Well, you're wrong. What she chose to do was," yeah. You bring the thought processes of your maker or your character alive. So we kept hearing Master Cherry's thoughts. That's a pantomime tradition. "I wonder what I should make out of this lump of dough. This is going to be the tastiest biscuit ever baked." And it slows the action down. So we're tantalisingly waiting, knowing it's going to come to life, and then there comes the anticipation creates the comedy. And you're going to bring that object alive. Okay, we're going to hear the voice of this object come to life. The emotional journey of extremes, yes, was important with Master Cherry. Him moving from this delight to surprise to fear to trying to reassure himself. So you really need that extreme emotional journey mapped through. That is pantomime. And if you're really clever, you will think about the rhythm of the action in comedy and put that into the rhythm of your sentences. This will help you to control punctuation. You go back, you can flip back in the video and go to that passage and create your own. Let's take it into the gingerbread man here. So they've heard the voice of the dough, of the gingerbread dough. They looked under the table, nothing there. They looked inside the bag of flour, nothing there. And look how the punctuation is guiding your reader to pause, yes, and to wave through that sentence with, and I've copied that directly from Collodi, with a series of dashes and semicolons. So we can use punctuation for comic effect. Now, in our books, in each of our units, our chapters, we always suggest there is further to go. There is more to explore that will deepen your understanding of comic writing. We would highly recommend that you go. The original full text of Pinocchio is available free on Project Gutenberg. The link is there. Do explore more. You could do some non-fiction research. You might want to know more about this crazy tradition that has become our Punch and Judy and comedy, or way back at the start of that century, Joseph Grimaldi, who became famous as Joey the Clown, was bringing Italian comedy to life in the London theatres. And in Bob's chapter, he really recommends the Victoria and Albert Museum website as a good place to start there. As I'd suggested, you could, after exploring Collodi's text, watch the Disney film and see whether you see there are different. Yes, is Disney's film as dark and violent and slapstick as Collodi's original is on the page? You could go to the French balladeer writer Hilaire Belloc, who wrote comic cautionary tales for children that again have a similar kind of darkness to them, but he gets away with it by being so slapstick and comedy. See what you think of those. We're in a golden age of children's picture books as well that are just as funny and entertaining and clever to read as an adult, as an older junior school child. One of my favourites is John Classen's series that starts with the picture book of the bear who has lost his hat. I want my hat back. See if you can see the same elements that are in Collodi's text in a picture book. Or indeed, you could move on to another Opening Doors unit. Now, Bob's unit 12, Shadow in the Drawer, takes us through a passage that's early on in J.M. Barrie's beautiful, magical, dark, absurd comedy, Peter Pan. So plenty of possibilities. We would love you to share your work. Don't hide your light under a bushel. You don't have to feel it's amazing. We just want to see how the work of great writers is inspiring young writers today. So you can see in that Crown House link, our wonderful publishers Crown House host student and children's work on their website. Now, we don't have examples yet because the books are fresh out of work that's been inspired by Pinocchio, so you could be the first. Write inspired by Pinocchio and ask an adult to email your work to us. There's my email address. And then we just need to seek adult permission, and some of your work could be up there on the site for all to enjoy and be inspired by. Good luck with your comic writing.